Hello, everyone. Welcome to our flash interview. I am here with Jonathan Bennun, our VP of Product here at BrightSec. We are excited to have Jonathan, and I'm going to jump right into the questions. Jonathan, tell us, what changes in AppSec have you seen in the last couple of years? What do you expect this year to be happening in the space?
I'm glad you're answering this question just out of nowhere, out of the blue, without us ever having coordinated it. I think what's interesting about AppSec is it's fighting in so many more frontiers than ever before. It used to be just about vulnerable code. You'd be chasing your engineers, but now it's about, all of a sudden, it's about software supply chain security. It's infrastructure, like infrastructure as code. And all of a sudden, we see many more apps. It's not just apps that you push publicly to the world. It's also internal apps that you have in-house. And you expect it to cover legacy applications like that PHP app that you built somewhere back in 2007. And you have microservices that now everybody's rapidly deploying and across multiple environments. And it's just a lot. So my take is that we tend to overvalue shiny features and that don't necessarily add a lot of value right now. And we undervalue how long it takes to adopt important tools and frameworks. So just the fact that more app security teams right now are using OWASP or MITRE ATT&CK as their baseline, I think is pretty big, is pretty important. And I think having more structure and more focus just around that helps a lot. And in terms of how the field is evolving, I think there's several ways to take this. Like, everybody wants to talk about machine learning or AI, but I think what we're going to see is more of the different tools we're working on, whether it's like scanners, taking advantage of things like metadata from behavioral analysis tools, or we're going to see vulnerability management that consolidates input and alerts from multiple sources. So, we started seeing a little bit of that in the last few years, but I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the next year or so.
Absolutely. Sounds like there's simply more complexity for the AppSec teams to deal with, more information as well that they have to deal with. So how should they react? What should an AppSec leader and their team really be focusing on this year to deal with it and prepare themselves for whatever may be happening?
Right. So I'm going to be, again, I like being the contrarian. I think it's not going to be about how you adopt another tool and not necessarily another framework. You don't need 5 frameworks. You need 1 or 2 that help you focus. So I'm going to focus on the behavioral. Don't throw things over the fence. Don't do them in a way that is disjointed, which I think a lot of organizations do, not in a way that is malicious or purposeful, just the way that organizations have gotten used to working. Like, I'll do mine and you do yours. And we know that it's just not really producing the right outcome. So I'm going to say something else. I'm going to say, you're an AppSec practitioner, great. Go have coffee with people. Go have coffee with development teams and infrastructure teams and lean into the SDLC. Don't sit in your silo. And again, everybody else is going to tell you implement this or that, but I just don't think that one more tool, unless again you have the right suite of tools in terms of static code, dynamic code, vulnerability management, unless you have those already, one more tool is not going to be the answer. So I think if you're trying to be truly impactful in AppSec, and especially if you're still building your resume, then one of the biggest issues you're dealing with is the lack of communication, just plain communication, specifically with engineering. So go have coffee with them. There are already better tools and practices than ever before, then you can just put to use if communication is right.
Yeah, so it sounds like people more than tools this year, and really building those relationships with other teams in the business, which should help prevent some of the risks that you might be exposed to. And let's ask about those risks. So what do you expect are the big ones this year, maybe more so than in previous years, in terms of risks and possible types of attacks that organizations really should be focusing on and how do they prepare themselves for those specific types of risks?
Right. Good news and bad news. It's going to be pretty boring in terms of it's going to be more of the same. That's what's going to dominate. Ransomware, check. Misconfiguration, check. Phishing, check. Unfortunately, they're just still very effective at scale. They're going to continue to be so. And again, there's always going to be the shiny thing about, well, thanks to ChatGPT, we're going to see much better phishing emails, right? But I think the point is that we tend to underestimate the value of little things that we need to do. For example, if as a company you implement MFA, do it right. Do the project right, push it all the way through to all apps and users. So just closing small gaps can go a long way. And I'll give another example. Again, looking at the SDLC as an AppSec, just do it a little bit better in terms of don't wait until you don't have any leverage within the SDLC. Start earlier, get to a point that you pick up the little things. So many little things like cross-site scripting, for instance, you can identify relatively early and don't let them escalate to the point that it gets a lot more costly to fix them.
Awesome. Thank you. That's it. That's our 3 questions. A quick fire interview. Thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate your time. And thank you, everyone who listened and watched this quick interview.